Chair recognizes Representative Anchía to speak on the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I'm here to speak on the bill because I have serious concerns about the border funding. Now, it was 10 years ago that Joe Moreno died. We celebrated his memory here on the floor recently. I was one of the passengers in the car that day, was with him when he passed on to the next life. And those first responders who came to us to help Joe, to help me, to help Monica Piñon, who was the third passenger in the vehicle, were the troopers of DPS, and specifically Trooper Stephen Moore. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the troopers at DPS. And to this day, still think fondly and gratefully about the aid that they rendered during that terrible accident that claimed Joe's life. I thank them when I see them in the gallery, at all of our entrances, on a daily basis, and I tell them thank you for keeping us safe. They're good women and men, and they do good work. My quarrel today is not with these troopers or DPS. My quarrel today is with the bill and the amount of money that we're spending in this bill. Members, apprehensions along the U.S.-Mexico border are at the lowest levels that they've been since 1970. Since 1992, we have quintupled the size of the Border Patrol at the federal level. In fact, when you look at legal crossings and unauthorized crossings, there are about 80 million legal crossings that occur every year. Do you know how many unauthorized crossings occur? 250,000 roughly. That's 0.3% of all the crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border. Yet we're spending $800 million on those 0.3% of crossings. That 250,000 may seem like a big number to you. Let's say we doubled it. Let's say it was 500,000. Let's say DPS let's say CBP's numbers are incorrect, because they estimate that they detain between 75 and 85% of the crossings that occur, the unauthorized crossings that occur at the border. But let's say they only get 50%. When you compare the numbers of crossings today to the number of crossings in the year 2000, there has been a 75% decline, members. 75%. Apprehensions per agent have dropped from 306 in 1992. Guess how many they did in 2013, members? 22 per agent. In the El Paso area alone, migrant apprehensions dropped from 123,000 in 2005 to 10,000 in 2012. We have had Operation Linebacker, Operation Wrangler, Operation Strong Safety, Operation Drawbridge, Operation Border Star, and a handful of other DPS operations, all intended to secure the border and protect Texas, roughly since the time I've been here, during the last 10 years. Come up with another cool sounding name and we'll give it an operation. Operation Border Watch, which is the 2010 version, spent about $4 million and resulted in only 26 arrests. 26 members. Yeah, that may sound good. I'm not talking prosecutions. These are arrests. Could have been for traffic violations, could have been cartel activity, and everything in between. You know how much we paid, our taxpayers paid per arrest? $153,800 under Operation Border Watch. asked the author of HB 11, Speaker Bonin, yesterday, Bill, and I have a great deal of respect for him, and I'm very pleased with the coalition that he put together to get that bill passed. I think he did some of his finest work since I've served with him. And he admitted there were no metrics. Members, we ask third graders to have metrics. They have to take a state accountability exam. We ask indigent women and children in the child health insurance program to meet metrics. But we don't have any metrics in this bill for DPS. And frankly, very little oversight. We're going to have a committee made up of members of the Senate and the House. And when asked, Speaker Bonin said, well, it's up to them to meet. No regular meeting schedule, no metrics for them to evaluate what DPS is doing, whether it's effective or ineffective, whether money's being spent wisely or unwisely. It's just a committee. It has been in vogue, members, to say Washington is failing us on securing the border. Well, how many times have we heard that on the House floor? How many times did you say it on your campaign trail? By show of hands, how many of you think that Washington is failing to secure the border? A lot of hands went up here. So that's based on CBP's data, right? We think CBP has been a failure on securing the border. And we've been giving them an F on their paper. But the interesting thing that's happened this session, members, we have realized, after Representative Blanco and others have dug into this, that same paper that we gave an F to for the federal government, well, DPS took that same paper, they erased the name on that paper and took off federal government, and they put DPS on it, and then gave us the same metrics. And you know what? We're giving them an A. Same numbers. We are giving them an A. And not only are we giving them an A, we gave them $500 million when this bill was on the way out. And on the way back, we are rewarding them for that plagiarism, for taking credit for CBP's numbers to justify this, and we're giving them $300 million more. Does that make anybody in here feel good? It does not make me feel good, members. We really need to think long and hard about what we're doing. We put out billions of dollars on CIPRIT. And I'll never forget that day at the back mic, then Representative Fred Hill said, whoa, 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 tap the brakes on this. This is a lot of money. Tap the brakes, members. We're about to make a big mistake. I voted for it. And what do we have years later? Scandal. There were no metrics in that bill either. We put out hundreds of millions of dollars in the enterprise fund. Years later, scandal. Emerging Technology Fund, hundreds of millions of dollars. Years later, scandal. HHSC. And I'm not dumping on the Perry administration for all these scandals. This is human nature, folks. If you throw hundreds of millions of dollars at something, whether it's a third grade classroom or DPS, and you have no metrics and no way to evaluate success, you are wasting your money. And I fear that's what we may be doing here. Think about how we could have spent that $800 million. We have uninsured adults. We have 31,000 children in foster care. 67,000 confirmed cases of abuse or neglect of children in foster care. 84,000 children in the last 5 years have been removed from their foster care home. Would it be great if we could find in our hearts to fully fund Child Protective Services, whose caseworkers and caseloads of 40 to 60 kids each? What about our retired teachers, members? What about using that money for our retired teachers? What about making ERS and TRS more actuarially sound. You think that's somewhere we could have put that money? What about public ed? Jimmy Don, I appreciate your work on that. I agree with you. This was a missed opportunity this session. The money was there. Because our third graders, they're 8 years old, members. They take an accountability exam. There are metrics there. We can evaluate how that money's being spent. But instead, we have a bill before us today that gives $800 million to DPS. A DPS whose troopers I admire.
Representative Laubenberg raises a point of
But
order.
we have no way
time
of
has
tracking.
expired.
Thank you,
Point of
members.
order is well taken and sustained.
Mr. Speaker.